So let's get started with our first composition in After Effects. I have a new project in After Effects, CC 2018. Let's create a new composition. Call it Target. Leave the preset HDTV 1080 resolution at 29.97 frame rate, and you can leave the starting and ending time codes the same and the background at black. Our composition today will be a simple target that we'll make with basic shapes that will then animate. Let's get started by going over on our toolbar and flying out our shape tool and grabbing the ellipse. Hold down your shift key to click and drag. If your fill color isn't set to red, change your fill color here to be red. And since we want a stroke, mine is set to no stroke. If I hold down my Alt key, I can click to set a stroke. I want my stroke to be pretty thick, like size 30. That'll make the outside edge of my circle. So down in my timeline, you can see that it says Shape Layer 1. Let's click on that, press Enter, and call this Outer Circle. And you can see next to my outer circle, there's this triangle that I can expand to see the different properties of my circle. We'll be using some of these properties later on, not only to change the shapes, but to animate them. With our outer circle layer selected, let's go up to Edit and say Duplicate. Let's try that again. Edit, Duplicate. Now we get a second shape layer. Let's call this one Inner Circle. Call this Outer Circle. Alright, we'll expand Inner Circle and expand Transform. You can see the different properties in here, and any of these properties that you can change manually you can also animate. You'll be seeing that today. So I'm going to scale this down to make the second ring of my target. I'd also like to see my stroke get a little thicker here. I want one more layer for my bullseye. So right click over in your layers underneath your timeline and say New Shape Layer. Grab the ellipse tool again and we will draw a small circle. This time I want the fill to be white. And again, hold down the Alt key and toggle through my strokes until I get to where it is none. So let's bring that over, make that into my bullseye. Maybe make that a little bit bigger. I can scale that up. And because I'd like to have these all aligned, I'm going to put my black arrow pointer out to the side and click and drag to select them all. And under the Align panel over here, I can align them horizontally on the center and vertically on the center. So now they are all nice and neat together. And I'm going to begin with my animation. So my first animation will be to take my outer circle. I want it to start really big and scale down to where it is. So over in my timeline, I'll collapse. Let's call this, before we go any further, let's call this bullseye. Keep that straight. Start with this outer circle. Expand outer circle, expand transform. And you can see I can click on the scale and drag, and I want that scale to be big. It's so big that I can't even see the stroke. So that's where I want it to be. If I click on the stopwatch, you'll notice it sets a little diamond here at the beginning, and that sets my keyframe. Now I can't see, I'd like this only to go for 1 second, and I can't see 1 second on my timeline. So if I hit plus on my timeline, it'll zoom my timeline in. Plus and minus will zoom in and out on my timeline. Let's now go over to 1 second, and we can actually just type this in, 100. And that is now going to animate that from where I set it up to almost 400% in the first second down to 1. The next thing I want to have is the inner circle scale up from nothing. So I want it to go all the way down. Let me collapse my outer circle and open up my inner circle. I want my inner circle to start at 0%. So I'm going to click on my stopwatch here. Actually, let's scale it down first. Let's scale it all the way down to 0. That'll be good. Click on my stopwatch to create my keyframe, and then move my playhead over to 2 seconds. And let's scale that all the way up. Now, it wasn't at 100%, it was about 68%, so we'll scale it up to there. So now you can see my animation, my outer circle comes in, my inner circle scales up, and then I want my bullseye to fade up. So let's expand bullseye here, and this time we're going to use, let me see here, got a little bit more in here because I think I created 2, but that's okay. We'll go to ellipse 1, there we go. We're actually going to scale up the opacity here. So I'm going to start at 2 seconds, set my opacity all the way down to 0. Click on my stopwatch to create a keyframe. Move my playhead out to 3 seconds and bring that back up to 100%. So now you can kind of see what's going on here. If I press home on my keyboard to move my playhead back to the beginning, and then spacebar on my keyboard, you'll see the animation go in real time. And there's my target. So I'm going to let it sit there for a second, and then I want to animate it out. And to animate it out, I'm going to actually have the inner circle kind of blow up through the other circles. So I'm going to come back here to my bullseye ellipse. This time I want to affect scale. So at 4 seconds, I will create a keyframe. That'll set the beginning of my animation. And at 5 seconds, I want to go ahead and scale that all the way out. So I want to scale that all the way out. Let's get that to just blow up real big on my screen. Home again. And those go away. So then I would like to have that transition back to black. So I'm going to have my opacity. We'll set a keyframe here at 6. And then from 6 to 7, let's come back. Did I click on the stopwatch here? Stopwatch. And at 7, let's fade that all the way out. Now you see that when I fade that out, my other circles are still visible. I can control that by controlling the size of the actual shape within the composition. So you can see I can move my shapes here. Let me hit minus on my keyboard to zoom out. And I can actually drag these down. So these little rectangles control how much of this is going to be played. So I really only want to have those played out to 6 seconds. Let's move those to the beginning, move those out to 6, and then this can actually be done at probably 8. Let's try that. Let me see, I think I moved these a little too far off. Let's see where those keyframes are. Yeah, let's move that in. See if I can get that back on the. Let's align these again. Let's do some adjusting in here. I think my keyframes, that should be about right. Keyframes are just a little bit off, I think. needs to be put back. And let's adjust the bullseye here. That's getting me pretty close. All right, we'll stop there and then we'll do some next parts as we go along. Good luck.